this video I thought I'd talk you through how to use an electric foam cutter. So I got this one, can't quite see it in the light there, just move it back. I got this one from Amazon, which was £25 by a company called GoChange. I've since found one I think called Winans, and that's £21, which has similar tools to what's in here, and you can buy a cutter which has just got the rod, as you can see on the picture there, and I think that's about £17, so they're quite cheap. You can also buy tabletop versions which kind of look a bit more like a scroll cutter, so the wire which heats up is vertical, and then you can kind of push or guide your foam through that and cut it that way. So I suppose a bit more like a jigsaw or a scroll saw. They come up a bit more expensive though, they're around £50 to £60. So I thought I'd give this one a go. So if I just show you the contents so you can see what's inside. So you get an adapter, you get your handle, which is what you plug in the different tools into. You get a couple of these rods, so you can see that one's already kind of coated with the foam, or melted foam. So there you got a longer one and a shorter one. You get this cutter here, and this is the tool that I wanted. As you can see, it's got this wire here, which I think is nichrome wire. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. And that heats up through the handle here, and that's then what cuts through the styrofoam. So obviously make sure you don't touch it when it's been heated up. So that's what I wanted. That was the main tool that I purchased this for. Although these are quite useful for some types of cutting, which I'll show you in a moment. You get some spare wire. In fact, you get quite a lot there, which is good. And I haven't had to use any of that yet. And I've made about 4 or 5 different things now. Yeah, maybe 6 actually. So yeah, so you don't have to replace the wire very often. And you also get this kind of miniature stand, which actually I don't find that useful. So I tend to just use the box actually, which I don't know if that's the wisest thing to do, but I found that it just keeps the cutter away from the surface, as I don't want to obviously get any marks on the surfaces that I'm working on. So it depends what you're using really to work on. So if you've got a workbench, then this would probably be fine, as you wouldn't mind if you've got to scratch the surface or not. So that's what comes in the box. So you get quite a lot for your money. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And of course you get the instruction booklet as well. So I'm just going to plug this in. I would imagine these work very similar to other variations of an electric cutter. Different makes, different brands. I'd imagine they're quite similar. So you plug your adapter into the bottom of your handle, and then you decide which tool you want to use. I'm going to start with this kind of semicircle kind of blade here. So I'm just going to plug that into the top. You can see there's then an on and off switch on the top here, and a LED indicator to show whether it's on or not. So I'm just going to switch mine on at the source. And if I switch that on there, you can see that's lit up there. So I'm just going to use my box. You can see already that's starting to smoke. So in very little time, it doesn't take long at all to kind of heat up. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And I tend to lean mine on the side like that. So if I'm working on the surface, I just kind of let it hang into the I suppose the polystyrene inside the box, and I just find that keeps it away from the surface that I'm working on. So again, make sure you don't touch that blade at all. This bit here doesn't heat up, so you're okay to touch that, but you don't want to touch the wire. So if I just take this kind of offcut here, what's nice about this cutter is that you can get some nice shapes. So you can kind of go up and down, and you can see there, you kind of cut into that, and it's really good then for kind of making these more kind of organic forms. And then this will just kind of peel off. You do get quite a bit of smoke that comes off this, so just be careful now when you're working with this, and it does smell a little bit as well. So you might want a ventilated space when you're working with this. So I'm just going to cut again around here. Helps if you go slow, and that gives you more control. And just by turning the foam and turning the cutter, you'll get some interesting marks or shapes from your foam. Now you can also just use it just to cut out a shape. So I'm going to bring in this piece here, which I've already kind of cut to shape. Now I tend to find, because this will only go so far, I tend to try to get this so you can see what I'm doing. Obviously I don't want the wire to be in the way, so I'm just going to push that down. As far as it will go, and bring that back up. And I think this is where one of the tabletop cutters would be quite useful, because you'll find it easy and then to kind of cut it into the shapes. So I'm just demonstrating on here what to do, because I actually want to use this piece, whereas I'm actually going to have to use a saw to finish this piece off, because I can't get into these angles. So just be aware of that. It's great if I've got already a piece cut out that I then want to shape. So for example, on this piece here, which I'm going to turn into a light cover, and I'm about to make a video on how to do that. This will be great for kind of cutting the edges, like I'm doing here. So I would generally use a saw just to kind of cut the shape that I want to use, but then I would use this cutter, this heat or electric cutter, to then cut the shape that I want around that. And you can see then it cuts that really, really easy. So I'm just going to move that out the way for the moment, and I'm going to turn that off for now. I'm just going to let that cool down for a minute or so. So the other tool I want to show you is this tool here. So it's like this, it's like a rod, and that heats up again, gets very hot. You won't get a nice thin line that you did with the wire from this tool, because it heats up. It tends to melt the styrofoam around it, so you have to kind of take into account that spread that you would get. So when you're cutting, I tend to cut away from the line. So if I've kind of drawn some guidelines first, I'd cut away from that on the outside, so it just allows then for that kind of that melting area, if you like. So I'll just kind of show you what I mean by that in a moment. So I'm just gonna pull out that one there and push this one in and switch that on, and again that won't take long to heat up at all. And I'm just going to demonstrate on this piece here, just so you can see what I'm doing. And again, I wouldn't really suggest to do what I'm doing right now, but I think it's just really useful for you to see what it's like. So if I wanted to cut that hole out here, so I'm going to push in, but instead of pushing on the line, I'm going to go in a bit further, and you can see already that kind of, can you see how that's spreading? And it's getting close to the line, even though I'm probably a good ½ centimetre away. So again, go nice and slow, but then it's really good for cutting out more shapes. It's actually meant to be, as far as I'm aware, for kind of engraving. So if you want to kind of draw shapes or maybe even write, particularly if you're using wood or something like that. So let me just move that out of the way. You can see then how that's cut that out, no problem. And it's obviously, you can see the hole there. So I just need to kind of finish that off with a saw. But generally I would cut that out first and then shape it a bit later. And as you can see, that's just dripped onto there because it gets very, very hot. So do be careful, do use something underneath your work surface so it doesn't damage the surface that you're working on. So I'm just going to switch that off, let that cool down a bit. And that's pretty much it. So I think they are worthwhile if you're interested in making more bases or using styrofoam in the future. I found this invaluable. Yeah, you can use just a knife, but for what, an extra £20, which I don't think breaks the bank, you've got a tool that you can use again and again, and it's going to get you some more interesting shapes for your future dioramas and bases. So yeah, it doesn't have to be that brand, but you know, have a look around, see what you can find. But I would suggest getting one of these as they are useful. Okay, thanks again for your time, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the near future.